Hey there, YouTube. Stormy here. I seem to still be stuck in this animated body. I've been looking for weeks now at this point to try to find a spell. I think I'm getting close now at this point, but who knows? Anyway, while we are waiting for me to solve this current crisis I seem to be in, how about another story? This week's story is going to be the continuing chapter in the Lighthouse Keeper saga, written by Reddit's very own u/Darkly Gathers. I hope you all enjoy. I'm the last lighthouse keeper in Scotland, and I've sailed the storm to the other side. By u/Darkly Gathers. The air shimmers like a pool of liquid glass as I sail madly through the door. Golden yellow light washes over and through me as I pass as a lone captain from one storm to another. The wave I ride carries and crashes down into yet no less choppy waters, shining silver in place of this familiar blue-black, and frothing beneath a foreign sky. I stare up into it. It's a sky of amber, bursting with full, heavy clouds of gold, clouds that swirl like a whirlpool in the heavens, thinning and paling ever so slightly into shades of lime as they edge toward the horizon. By the brine and blazes blue, I mutter to myself, into what fathomless realm have I intruded? I glance below. There's nothing there but the door, and the rolling waves that stretch off towards the horizon. Ahead, however, there lie more wondrous curiosities. In the distance stands a long, high cliff of shiny black stone that crumbles into the sea. There are no stacks, no arches, no cracks or caves to be seen, but instead, floating spheres. Floating spheres of stone that hover close to the cliff's edge, shining and sparkling with salt, like golden specks under the strange and shifting yellow light from the sky above. And what do I see to the cliff's right? Standing alone on the island of the same black stone? A lighthouse. A lighthouse not altogether unlike my own, though the light on this one is out cold, dead dark. Well, now I suppose that'll be my destination then, I bellow cheerfully, grunting and gripping the ropes and adjusting my course through the shiny silver-grey waves. Through the angry tides I dutifully sail, the boat rising and falling and rocking with the swell of the sea. But a sudden change in the world above gives me cause to glance up from these churning waters. A burst of black like an ink stain is spreading across the amber sky. I watch as it starts to flow, to leak in all directions overhead. The shining tips and highlights of the clouds shining bright like rivers of gold against the darkening canvas. The closer I draw to the lighthouse, the darker threatens the sky. Come on, I mutter to myself, my heart a race. Nearly there, old girl. Nearly there. But enough distance lies between me and the lighthouse. Heavy shadows fall across my surroundings, and the cursed, twisted distortion of the ocean makes one last desperate attempt to keep me back. These threats and temptations alike are proof enough that I am set on the right course. The notion burns bright within me. I hold tight to it. The flame of my flare may have been extinguished, but my own inner fire blazes on. An enormous and barnacled boulder from the bottom of the sea now rises up a wee distance ahead, pushing aside the roughened white-grey surface with forth and blasting spout. It groans and grinds and rolls in place as it ascends, held in a torso compromised of twisted seaweed, black and writhing, and endlessly flowing and cascading water, like a waterfall in all directions at once. The spray flying like rain as it catches in the winds of the storm. I shield my eyes as the boat tips away from the entity, and I grab and pull at the rigging to keep myself upright. The boulder spins around in place, and two hollowed cheekbones of rock become visible, beneath two bright and fearsome eyes of icy blue. And still it ascends. Twice my height, then thrice. Rock is drawn from the ocean floor and swept up to its body, held tight by the wraps of the dark sea foliage.
Lighthouse keeper.
It groans in a voice like thunder, water spilling impossibly from its stony jaw. I pride myself on my constitution. As I told you at the beginning, I've seen things most men's wouldn't have ever dreamed of. But this thing, the voice sends through me shards of ancient terror, and I cry out in alarm. Worse than the singing of the murdered monks, worse than the bells of that damned cathedral. The voice reverberates around and around in my head like a calamitous whirlpool. I have to get away. So I grab the ropes and alter my direction, of course, at once. Riding the waves of the surge and storm, eyes fixed on the monsters, blue and terrible. Her icy gaze bores brutally back into me. And I hear a voice from behind me. "Oh, you don't want to go that way, old chap. Trust me on this one." "Fuck!" I shout in panic, stumbling and swiveling into the voice's source. I recognize it, of course, just don't believe it. The boat rocks dangerously from side to side on a rising wave, but the owner of the voice stands firm. His sea legs as good tonight as they were the day I first met him all those years ago. "Jack?" I mutter in disbelief. "Mad Jack Candles?" Hands behind his back and boots firm on the wood of the deck. He stands as a ghostly spectre, pale and glowing in this enshrouding darkness. His coat almost as torn and tattered as mine, but colourless now, billowing in the gale. He looks back at me, and winks with his good eye, and his eye patch, of course, covers the other. "Good to see you, Douglas," he chorts loudly, and he suddenly lunges forwards. I stumble back in fear, but he only laughs in response, bracing his shimmering boots against the deck and the side of the boat. Grabbing the nearest ringing and looping it around his arm, pulling and yanking it tight and drawing the boat in the opposite direction, back toward the beast. "What are you doing, you old mad English bastard?" I bellow. "You'll get us fucking killed." "A little late for me, Douglas," Jack laughs, then nods to the sail. "Sharp turn this one. Give us a hand, would ye?" I grimace and swear and do what he says. No time for much else now. I turn from the ghost of my mentor to the monster from the depths, the idol of the sea. She roars with the winds as the boat alters its course. My salt pepper beard bristles wild. "Look over to the left, lad. You see what you're heading right for?" Jack shouts from behind. I glance over and my eyes go wide when I see glimpses of void black rocks that the rapidly rising and lowering waters provide. Just out from the sea like great teeth, ready to bite into the hull of any vessel foolish enough to stray too close. The monster roars. She throws out two great arms of churning silvery seawater as the boat hammers toward her on the crest of a wave. "We're going to crash right into her, Jack," I cry out above the clamour. "Nonsense, Douglas! Look at her chest! What do you see?" I was always taught it was rude to look at a lady's chest, Mr. Candles. I shout back, and the Englishman laughs heartily in reply. Look, Douglas, look! The rock end's there. Below her chest is nothing but water. And we'll sail right through, so brace! I roar out a battle cry, defiant in the face of this enemy of the deep. Her eyes flash bright in supplies, and with an icy shook we plunge right through her middle. For several long seconds I know only the rush and the pour of the death-cold swirl, soaking me through to my skin. I slip and stumble crashing down into the deck, but the boat nonetheless makes it through to the other side. Fuck! I shout, spitting a mouthful of spray out over the other side. Cupping my hands and hastily scooping out as much water as I can see from the embottled little boat as Mad Jack guides the steering. I grab the pole of the sail and rise to a stand. Oh, sea legs, don't fail me now, I command, and cup a hand round my mouth and to shout into the watery witch of the sea as she turns to look at us over her great shoulders of writhing seaweed. The sea might very well take me one day, lass, I must admit it. It would come as no great surprise. But at the very least, my dear, it won't be today. It won't! And with a wail and a strike of lightning upon the ink-stained horizon, the monster swells with a swirling wave. She rises higher up into the air, then the lights of her eyes go dark. With a ferocious scream that shivers across the surface of the sea, her form collapses. The grooves and lines of her stony face once again appear as no more than natural cracks and dents in the rock, and the various materials of her beginning to cascade back into the water. The force of this collapse sees the boat pushed faster and further away. The lighthouse is close now. I turn to Mad Jack, my chest still rising and falling from the shock of the icy water. Thank you, Jack. Always saving me from bouts of panic, eh? I look the man up and down. So, pray, tell me, what are you then, pal? A ghost of sorts? Jack flashes a grin as the spray of sea flows right through him. He grunts as he tugs on his rope one last time, then ties it off to the side of the boat with his ethereal hands. Not quite, old sport, he replies. I'm not trapped here, if that's what you're asking. I'm not even here in any of the traditional senses. Not in body, neither in spirit. To call myself an echo would be more accurate, I should think. I grunt and shake my head. What happened to you, Jack? I ask him as my beard drips. I wipe the last of the stinging salt from my eyes. Why did you go? I'm sorry it had to be so sudden. Truly. I had more pieces of the puzzle revealed to me than you, lad. So I seized an opportunity I was not sure could ever come again. And it demanded immediacy. He pushes his wild, blown fringe from his working eye. The twin beams must be manned, Douglas, he solemnly says, his coat whipped wild about his shoulders. Rule number 3. The twin beams. I look up to the lighthouse ahead, its bulb dark and dead. Of course. Aye, Jack, I reply. I hear you. And it was good to see you again. The man nods. It dissolves at once as a mist and disappears into the whirling winds. And just like that, he was gone. I turned to face back towards the lighthouse. Not far now. Not far at all. But the storm. This surging storm. I hold the boat back as I approach, riding the crests of the waves and waiting for a necessary lull, sufficient to see me bring the boat onto the stony shore without smashing it, and myself, to pieces in the process. The thunder rolls and the waters churn, and I see my chance. I bellow and pull tight to the rigging, bringing the boat round through the sea. It's far from still, and quite far ahead, but it should be enough. Please let it be enough. The spray blasts high, and I bring the boat into the shallower waters of the little island's immediate coast. It's much like my own, though the stone here is smoother and much darker. I stretch out an arm when the moment strikes. I grab a hold of the rusted metal of the wee island's surrounding rails. I cry out in pain as my arm feels fit to pop from its socket, but I hold firm with all my might. I bring the boat to a rough and jarringly chaotic halt upon the rock with a scrape and a grind. Fucking hell. I grunt and I stumble, hopping out from the side of the boat, grabbing it tight and holding it in as close as I can to the lighthouse. Arms burning with exertion, hands shaking and raw from my efforts with the ropes across the sea. But I'm here. Wherever here is. I've made it. This is where the door wanted to send me. I'm sure of it. And old Mad Jack practically confirmed it to me himself. I pull my collar tighter around my neck. Not that it's doing me much good now. The wind is arctic in its assault against the sea-soaked skin and clothes. I grab the handle and make to barge right in. But what would you know? The bastard's locked. I try again, rattling the door with full force. I sigh and click my tongue, preparing to kick the thing down. Before I do, however, I decide to knock. Loudly and firmly. Just in case. I'm no barbarian after all. And what would you know? There comes a response. Difficult to hear above the wind and the surge, but it's a woman's voice. Sounds like she's asking who I am. She sounds frightened, and hell, I don't blame her. Name's Douglas Bannerman, I shout through the wood. I've come from the twin of this here lighthouse of yours. If my understanding is correct, you've a wee problem with your light? You fancy letting me in? There's a pause. As the storm rages. Douglas? Comes the voice. Aye, that's right. Douglas Bannerman. I man the lighthouse. I struggle with how to describe its location relative to my current position. The lighthouse on the other side. I knock again. Now come on. Are you gonna let me in or not? I'm freezing my fucking balls out here. I assure you, I'm on an errand of utmost importance. I'll kick down the door if I have to, lassie. And then the door swings open, and a woman of similar age to myself stands before me. Illuminated orange in the glow of the lamps she keeps around the walls. And for a moment or two, my heart stops dead. I can't believe what it is that I'm seeing. I can't comprehend. My mind struggles with the sight. I stutter in surprise as the woman speaks. You won't be kicking down any doors of mine, Douglas Bannerman. The words come from my wife. I only bloody painted these things last week, I'll have you know.
Hello there, YouTube. Stormy here. I hope you enjoyed tonight's story. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what you liked about it. And if there are any more stories that you would like me to do, make sure to comment those down below as well, and I will be more than glad to check them out. Now, you folks have a wonderful night, and I hope to see you in the next video. If we all survive.